All right, here we go. Today we have mobster John Red Shea, former associate of Kingpin Whitey Bulger and Boston's Winter Hill Gang. And I want to point out, never snitched. Welcome to Vlad TV.
Thank you, Vlad. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Very interesting story. And you actually have a new book out, Rat Bastards.
It's been out a while, but it's a New York Times bestseller, as you can see.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. So a lot of this story we actually got from the book. So everyone who's listening, if you want a more detailed explanation of this, definitely go get the book. Well, it's your first time here. I want to start in the very beginning. So you grew up in South Boston.
The largest Irish enclave in Boston, a very tight Irish knit neighborhood.
Right, and that's known as Southie?
Southie, that's correct.
Okay, and this was a fairly rough background.
So Southie, you had a lot of, they had politicians, and again, Whitey Bulger's brother was one of the biggest politicians in the state, Billy Bulger. You had doctors, you had lawyers, and you had gangsters. You had it all in Southie. Mm-hmm. And but one thing in Southie, not just the intelligence of people really that came from Southie, but you had to be tough, growing up in a neighborhood. You got punched in the mouth, you defended yourself. And if you couldn't fight that well, you still defended yourself the best you could. Because if you didn't, you'd get eaten alive.
Well, yeah, in the book you said how everyone had a baseball bat in their car.
Yeah, I mean, it was a different era back then, too.
Right, you said even the nuns would whoop you.
Oh, forget about it. Catholic nuns, forget about it. I had them Catholic nuns hit me with rulers and everything else and pointer sticks or whatever they had at the age of 6 years of age, over my shoulder and breaking. And of course, I was a class clown in front of the class, and I'd laugh after they did it. And then I'd be sent into the closet, and I'd have to stand in the middle, in the corner of the closet, if you will.
Well, in the book, you actually described it as one of the last urban white ghettos.
Yes.
Okay, so you grew up with your mom and 3 sisters. And your dad got thrown out of the house when you were born?
When I was very young, yeah. My father was thrown out of the house because he had the curse. He had the Irish curse. He was an alcoholic. And he actually died when I was about 9 years of age. I didn't know him. I visited him like once or twice with my sisters in a place that he was living in, Southie. And he died of cirrhosis of the liver.
From drinking too much.
Yep, you got it.
Okay. Now, you started boxing when you were 5 years old?
5 years of age. And I believe you saw the pictures in there of 5 years of age of me boxing.
Okay. I mean, 5 is pretty young, though.
It is. But, back then, I got beaten up by older kids in the neighborhood. And I come running home so angry one day, and I wanted to grab a weapon, even at that age, to go beat up the older kids with a weapon. And my sister said, "You're not doing that." And she came out, she went down the street, and she beat the shit out of these 2 boys. And she went into the home, and she took the coat rack that was in the corner of the foyer of the home, and she beat them with the coat rack. And I'm grateful for my sister for that day, of being so young, because my sister is almost just about a 10 years difference in age. And she said after that, she grabbed me by the hand and she said, "You're going to the gym in Southie and you're going to learn how to box."
Okay, so in 1973, you started boxing. A year later, that's when they actually start busing kids from other neighborhoods.
That is
into
correct.
Your school. And was this like the first major city to do this?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And it was, let me tell you, it was horrific. It was horrific. The rioting, the police escorts, the U.S. Marshals, you name it, the throwing stones and rocks at the buses, the black kids being on those buses and stuff. I was just a young man, and I remember that distinctly and vividly. And I have to say, every kid in Southie, every kid that went to public school in Southie was held out. They boycotted from going to school. And in all reality, that only hurt the kids like myself growing up. Eventually, I went back to school, but they actually opened up a school called the South Boston Heights Academy. And I went to that school as a private school, and we had no money. My mother had no money, but she gave what she worked cleaning floors, doing whatever she could to get me into that school. And of course, I failed that school because I was a class clown there too, unfortunately.
Right. So they basically took black kids from the black neighborhoods and put them on a bus and brought them to
Into
Boston,
a white neighborhood.
Into a white neighborhood. Then they took white kids and put them in black neighborhoods.
That is correct.
Into the black schools.
That is correct.
And this ended up being a disaster pretty much?
And I was one of those kids, yeah. I mean, it didn't work out well. It really didn't. And they call that, today they call that, and they look back and they go, did that really work out that well? And really didn't, because it hurt a lot of education for kids. Now, when I was going to school, I had to revert backwards. I had to revert. Now, I was, a grade above of what they wanted to revert back to. I said, listen, I already learned this. As a kid, I said, I already learned this last year. I know this. Well, they had to drop the educational level because the other kids weren't up to par to that. So I was still stuck in that because it was the school system, the Boston school system. And I couldn't afford to go anywhere else. And I had to go back into it. So that said, they call that kids that grew up in that era the lost generation.